Hey everybody. So once you've done some work for a spell, you'll want to test and publish it for you and your team to use. Now I'm going to go through a manual spell and then a trigger spell just to show you what they look like on each one because they are slightly different. Now testing is meant for inside the editor. Let's make a new spell to see what that looks like. So if I click at start, and I'm going to make a manual spell again to start. Let's say it's a fake company research spell again. So we got the company name and then the company website. And if I just have a research agent that uses the company name and maybe just the company website right here. We don't need to be too specific because we're not going to care too much about the results. All right. And then we have a display step right here for the research report. Great, we're speedrunning this. And then this is company research 2. All right. So now if I want to test it, I can just go up to the test tab up here and I can enter the values and I can run it. I'm not going to do it right now just because I want to keep the video short, but it'll run just as if you've seen the last few videos. Now, if I would say, okay, I'm good to go. I want to start using this via API. I want to schedule it. I want to share it with my teammates. Then what I need to do is publish it. So if I click the publish button up here, I'm going to be taken back to the spell page, and this is ready to go. Now, I have the run tab, which I can just use just like the testing editor. I just enter the values and let it run. I can run it in bulk, so upload a spreadsheet and then run that spell over each row. We're going to have a better, more in-depth video on that later. I can schedule it to run every day, every week, every month, etc. And I can also use it through the API or Slack integration. The API, I have some notes on that for when we get to updating spells. Now, with that said, let's talk about updating your spells. So let's say I think it's pretty good, but the research isn't all that great. I need to maybe refine it a bit. I can go into the editor and let's say make sure to include the positioning or specific headline from their website. There we go. Maybe that'll improve results. When I exit the editor here, it's still going to use the old one. If I added inputs, it would still be this old one. And the reason why is because when you're in the editor, you have a draft. Now, this is the version that I published, and it's the one showing on the spell page. And I don't want to edit that when I'm in the editor because I don't want to overwrite it and break my spells, especially if it's run through the API or it's scheduled or it's triggered from some integration event. So I'm going to want a draft, and that's what we do for you. Every time you enter the editor, you're always in a draft. You can always go back and restore old versions, but these changes I want to keep, and I want to update those into a new version and use that as the new spell and all be all. So if I just click update here, I'm going to be taken back to the spell page, and this is now using the new version. So it's going to get that headline positioning from the company's website. And a key thing to note here is whenever you update your spell, all of these tabs are going to use the latest one. And so if I added a new input here, let me just do that. So let me just add another input so it's clear. If I add the company, I don't know, support email. I don't think it'd be helpful for the research, but just to show you what it looks like. Oops, email address. And then I update this again. Then you can see that this is going to be here. And I can't see the old versions of it except in the editor. Now, whenever I run it through, running here, or bulk run, or scheduling, or API, it's always going to use that latest version. So just keep that in mind when you're updating this, especially for the API. If you want to use a past version for the API, I recommend duplicating the spell. And so when you're updating your code, then you can just use the new spell ID from that duplicated spell. And that's pretty much it for updating, publishing and updating manual spells. Let's go into what a trigger spell is going to look like. So let's look at the Slack responder trigger spell. Now, if we're going to the spell page, it looks a little bit different. Trigger spells are already running kind of on a schedule, and you can't really bulk run them. They're not meant to be used manually like the other spells. So that's why this looks a little bit different. And we see an insights chart here to show you how many runs you've had. Of course, I haven't run this yet, but if I did, it would show a little line chart. and then a history table as well. And you can also see up here, this is what indicates whether the spell is live listening to events or not. And I can always pause or resume the listening. And so if you really need to shut off a trigger really quick, it's going haywire, that's your way to do it. And sometimes when you update your spell, it's also going to automatically be paused until you manually re-enable it. So that will usually only happen when you might expect, which is your integration trigger changes. But always check that when you update your spell that this is still enabled. Now, if we go into the editor, I want to show you what it looks like to test a trigger spell. It is a bit different. So when you click test, you'll see all the fields that come from the trigger's details, but we're going to give you some sample values. Now, this one for the Slack message, we're saying here's hello world is the message, 1234, etc. Thread ID, general channel name. Everyone has a general channel, and then the sender name. That's a sample of John Doe. And so we don't have right now the querying events that have happened previously, but that will be coming at some point in the future. And I can just test this. Just keep in mind that if you're passing in some values like we are with thread ID, and those need to be actual data, then that step might not work because this is not a valid thread ID. It's just a sample data. And I can replace that in here if I wanted to. I can put in whatever value I wanted. Now, that's pretty much everything you need to know about testing, publishing, and updating spells. I will see you in the next part of the series where we will start exploring how to use your spells.